Okay, Bucky, did you have any ideas about what topics we can cover that are sort of itching in your skull?
I would love to hear the feedback on how it is involving your family on social media, and then what you're seeing as far as results, or just how you feel about it. Because I think so many of us are cautious about just posting on social media, and you've taken it that step further of saying, I'm getting my family involved.
What's up, everyone? It's Andrew Bermudez, co-founder and CEO of Digsy, the free commercial real estate search engine. If you got properties for lease or sale, go ahead and list them on getdigsy.com and just watch all those tenants and buyers come in. We have my co-host, the winner of the youngest commercial real estate broker. He started brokering when he came out of the womb. Actually, that's a lie. He had to learn how to walk. So about a year and a half later, he started trading real estate. And today, he has more years of experience than somebody in their 60s, but that's Bucky BEEMAN. Bucky, introduce yourself.
Yeah, I am the young guy. I just got a message on Facebook, and it was funny. This person messaged me and said, someone complimented you. They didn't share me your name, but I knew. They said they spoke highly of this said 12-year-old that came in and helped them sell their building in downtown Rochester. And she goes, as soon as they described that, I knew exactly who they're talking about. So I have the baby face and I can't shake it, but it's all good. People remember.
Can you imagine when you're like in your 40s and 60s, like you're going to look like you just like got out of college.
I know, right? So I'm a young real estate agent based out of Minnesota, and been building my business with tools of the internet and networking and working hard. And it's gone extremely well in a small market. And I just love using the internet to my advantage to help build my business.
And so that's Rochester, Minnesota, home of the
Mayo Clinic.
Yeah, Mayo, M-A-Y-O, like mayonnaise, but not really. And we've got our, right here, interim co-host right here, karly.iacono. So Carly's from Marcus Millichap, and she's going to tell you a little bit about herself in 5 seconds or less. I'm kidding.
Go. So I lead the lease sales team at Marcus Millichap. We sell properties all over the country on investment basis, a lot of fast food restaurants, drugstores, Home Depot, things like that. We work with clients looking to set up passive income streams in various markets.
That's awesome. So today's topic is a variety of topics. So we want to talk, so both of you use social media. I know that this is turning into like a social media podcast for commercial real estate. And usually we share other stuff. So if it's your first time tuning in to this vlog/podcast, we talk about email, automation tools to generate leads, data sources, etc. But Karly and I got to know each other through LinkedIn. She's been really active on LinkedIn. For example, Bucky and I we got together on Twitter. Same thing with Natalie. That's where we all met each other. And it's been just a great way to stay top of mind without me blowing up Bucky or Natalie's inbox every day. So I got a question for you, Karly. So how did you get started in social media? And like you do all these great videos, Fast Five. And it's really good content. By the way, I'm going to put a link on the show notes so that you guys can see it. And before we get through to that question, if you're watching this on YouTube, please make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, leave us a comment. Would love to hear your ideas on what topics we can cover. And Karly, why did you start doing social media? I mean, M&M is usually, Marcus Millichap is like, they teach you, go on the phones, you got your own CRM, publicly traded company. So it's kind of like the grind, send email, this, that. And it's kind of like, I always think of it, and you guys probably going to hate me, so please don't send hate mail, but it's kind of like boiler room. So it's like, let's make money on steroids, but you've chosen a path. I see some Marcus Millichap individuals doing it, but not with the consistency and the amount of effort that you go into putting your content. Like, what was the reason for you going there?
It's really efficiency. I hate wasted time. I don't like doing, although cold calling works, I don't like putting out 350 cold calls into a market. I think relationship building and depth of conversation and quality of information is a lot more important. And I found that in my conversations, which are usually very lengthy with new clients, I was saying a lot of the same things over and over and over. So I wanted a way to share market knowledge real time with more people in a more efficient manner. So it's really an impetus to scale for time management and build a brand and build a business. So we launched the video series before anyone was really doing video blogs, the beginning of this year, January 1st. 2020. And it's been great. Of course, now everybody's doing video blogs because we're all trying to communicate virtually. But it's been a very important tool for us in terms of reaching more and more people.
So how did you basically grab your client database and then just make sure you connected with everybody on LinkedIn so that they would see it? So, because otherwise, like if I join LinkedIn and I have like no connections that I post, it's going to be cricket. So what was your strategy behind that?
I already had a really good LinkedIn presence. We had a very established client base going into the video blog. So we had a pretty big following. It was just a new way to get content out and people like yourselves and Bucky that we didn't know before through the visibility of the brand. So we started with our existing clients and connections, third parties we'd done deals with, clients we'd actually bought and sold for, developers we knew, REITs, all the people that were really in our sphere already. And then it just kind of snowballed from there.
And Bucky, you saw the video that Karly put yesterday, right?
Yeah, so it involved your children, Karly, right?
It did. 2 girls. Mm-hmm.
Actually, they were like, it was their video. Karly was nowhere to be seen.
I had very little to do with it except for hitting play and then leaving the room, honestly, or hitting record. It was a tough call. You know, I tend to be a pretty private person, minus all this social media hoopla. I don't use social media personally, really. But they are involved in the business. And having been working from home for 5 months now, which I never did before, they're really very, very involved in the deal process and marketing. They understand it so much more now. And they love Fast Five. So they wanted to give it a shot themselves. I think it turned out great. And I thought, what a fun way to kind of share a little bit more about myself and my team with our client base who just knows us from the strict, you know, deal side. So it was fun. It's gotten a really good response too.
And even though you weren't in it, people obviously see what account it's coming from and they connect it with you and they see their last names. And it just helps people, I feel like, get to know, trust, and like you to want to communicate with you more. I mean, you're really taking out the barrier, and commercial real estate tends to be very, like people are not in the business, afraid to communicate with those that are, for the fact that they feel like, am I in a position that I can ask the questions? I don't want to sound stupid. Like, you just brought realness to the internet in the industry you're in. I really like that.
Thank you.
Yeah, her next video, she told me it's going to be her older daughter on the phone closing a deal for her.
Yeah, right.
And then Karly's in the background getting fanned and fed grapes by these really two attractive, more muscular men from Calvin Klein.
Great. Set up, send them over.
So we've talked, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's funny, you know, net lease has become such a big part of our family that we'll be on, you know, a drive to dance class. And I'm like, look at that CVS. That is a beautiful build out. Or, oh my God, there's a new Wawa. This is amazing. And my kids now point them out to me as we're going anywhere because it's just such a big part of everything that we do and talk about.
Yes, but Mom, what's the cap rate?
Exactly.
So we of course, Natalie couldn't make it today. She had mom trouble, she mentioned. So whatever that means, I hope she has her sanity. But we have gotten, it's great to have Natalie on because she brings a perspective, and, you know, she's just a badass when it comes to commercial real estate and marketing herself. Everybody knows her. In fact, she was #1 on Ken Ashley's list of top influencers. So it was Natalie, I think Casey Flannery or Melissa Alexander, and then Casey or Melissa. Like, those were the top 3, which I was really stoked to see that it was mainly women, because they're busting their tails off and they're putting out great content. So they totally deserve it. But Bucky, you had a question for Karly around being a female in the commercial real estate world, especially investments, right?
Yeah, just curious what your story is as to getting into the industry, and then just how that has turned into your full-time career and what it's like being in triple net investments as a woman, as it's been a male-dominated industry for so many years. And like I had mentioned just off the pod, is that it is changing, and it's great that it's changing. It's becoming more diverse in so many ways in our industry.
It's been a wild ride. I'm not going to lie. Investment sales is still across all firms 2 to 3% women, 2 to 3% on the brokerage side. All the admins mostly are women, but very, very few brokers, and that's in all the major firms. it's hard to recruit women. It's hard to get them to stay. It's just not been a career path that a lot of females have chosen. Hopefully that's changing. I think it's starting to. For me, it's been an advantage and a disadvantage. It's an advantage because it's easier to get name recognition because obviously there's a uniqueness. Disadvantage in that people are comfortable working with more of the same, more of what they know. The, golf course kind of preppy male mentality, middle-aged. It's just, that's what commercial real estate has always been. So change is difficult. And I think our industry is very slow to change and adapt to new concepts on the sales side. Maybe leasing and tech are a little bit different. And I do think there's a lot more women in leasing from what I can tell, kind of the flip-flop. But it's slowly changing. So I found that when I have a new client introduction, it's very important to share knowledge and share skill sets, probably to a higher degree than I think a man might have to. It's more of a proving that our team is the right choice because we're competent, and almost overcoming the fact that maybe it's a little different because we're, female-led team. So it's a challenge, but I think ultimately there's tremendous opportunity for women in the industry. We bring a great perspective that's very needed, and we have a very strong depth of client relationships, which is crucial for investment sales.
Yeah, you can see like the gears turning on. I have a similar experience. So when so I'm originally born and raised in Ecuador, right? And I came here in the early 90s. And for me, even though it's not to the extent that we're seeing that some of the challenges where you have to prove yourself, at the time, the climate in California was that people would look down upon Hispanics, mainly, Mexican populated. I was Ecuadorian, South American, but they just lump you all in together into one class. And whenever I go apply for a job, whenever I go do anything, even when I was in high school, I would have to show and demonstrate that, hey, you should take me serious. But, I have the advantage of being a male as well. If you want to call it an advantage or more of like a bias or prejudice, I believe that's probably the better word. I had to do that. And in fact, I didn't lose my accent. Like I sounded like Ricardo. I would talk to you like this until I started losing it when I was like 17, but I still had it. And it took a lot of time and intention to get to assimilate. And I did notice a big change when I started sounding more like, hey, this guy doesn't speak Spanish. This guy is American. And reality is like, I'm just like, you don't know me. You know what I mean? But I did go through a version of that, not to the extent that we've seen it. And I think it's BS. But my main question is, you said two things. Mainly the admins are women. That's okay. I'm going to put that on a sidebar for now. But why, you mentioned that we have a lot of turnover when there's a woman in investment sales, or that we're not attracting. Like, why is that? Is it awareness? Is it that, I don't know, like, can you demystify that for us really quick?
We're trying to figure it out from a recruiting side corporately as well. And we are getting a lot more women in. I think it's a lack of female leaders. And this is not just in my firm, but across all the major companies. There's not a lot of mentors. There's not a lot of people who've been visibly successful or are in upper ranks of management. So maybe the career path isn't as clear for women. They don't immediately come out of school or come out of a finance degree and say, you know what, I see this path. I see commercial real estate investment sales as a great next step. I think it doesn't occur to a lot of women because it's not been done as much. Also, it's very highly competitive, like you said, extremely cutthroat a lot of the time. And women can 100% thrive in that environment. But I think historically, stereotypically, hasn't been something that they've sought out to the same degree that men have, sort of that culture. The culture is changing rapidly. Our firm has done an amazing job kind of creating opportunities for women and supporting the female brokers that we have. Really, it's been great. But I think just the notion that investment sales is a dog-eat-dog business, which it 100% is and can be, has maybe kept some women from even exploring it.
What about the admins? Like, why is there such a propensity for women to go into admin positions? Is it that there's a bias or a prejudice from like the employer to say, oh, I want a woman in that position? Or is it much more that you just get more people applying for that type of position? Like, can you
I
kind
think
of
it's
clear
B.
out some crumbs for us?
I definitely think it's B. I just think it's who's applying and what the pool looks like. There's been some great male admins, in different offices that I've worked with as part of other teams. So I don't really think there's any bias against men being admins. I just think the applications tend to be women.
Yeah, it's just it's definitely the market for that position is greater than the market for, let's say, a position like Carly's, where you're in, and just to zoom out really quick, I don't think that this problem is pervasive and exclusive to commercial real estate. Like, you're in the New York area, right? So Carly, like, if you go to an investment banking, if you go into venture capital, if you go to Boston Consulting or any of the consulting companies, right, like McKinsey, they have the same problem. Like, the rainmaker positions are maybe, I don't know what the stats are, but they're, I would guess 2 to 3% women as well. So I
And
think we're going through kind of like a new, like, we're trying to figure it out, but
Mhm.
it's an interesting thing because we're looking at what, like, thousands of years of prejudice and bias in this stuff. And it's been like, Carly, when you and I were like back in high school, we saw the differences, and we're this new generation, and still, like, I don't know about how you feel, but I'm going, like, I think we'd be further along right now.
Yeah. It's taking longer than I think anybody hoped. Same goes for minorities and just general diversity across the board. But at least there's an effort. At least things are starting to change.
So when you've gone up against male-dominated teams with reputation, but you've won the assignment, what are some of the comments your clients have told you of why they gave you the assignment?
It really has nothing to do with gender, honestly.
That's great. I just want to hear it just in general.
Keep it out of the equation as much as possible.
Well, you don't want to get sued either, so that's probably a good thing.
Yeah. I am incredibly detail-oriented, data-driven, and results-driven. So, if we're doing a client pitch, we have everything spelled out to the T. We know exactly where the asset's going to trade. We have ideal buyer profile in mind. We have our marketing buttoned up. So it's really a matter of just having each phase be better than the competition and presenting it concisely, professionally, with a clear plan in place. So I think it's attention to detail at each stage that allows us to win assignments.
Great. And then on your marketing, how like, to the actual, not to market yourself and knowledge, but like, what tools are you using to market properties? Email blasts, direct emails, phone calls? Like, what are some of the technology or the mediums? Are you doing any ads on Google? Are you actually posting properties on LinkedIn or running ads on LinkedIn or various social media platforms? Can you give us just a list of kind of like where your energy goes to actually move the assets?
Yeah, so our theory is more eyes on the deal typically equates to higher competition, which then results in the highest trade price. So unlike some of our other firms that we work with, we don't silo properties. We don't try to sell them in-house. We often will have the right buyer, but our goal is maximum exposure in the industry. And I think that's really, really important, because with net lease especially, the buyer could be anywhere in the country. They're not
outside of the country.
Exactly. They could be absolutely anywhere. So you need to have maximum exposure and most eyes on the deal you possibly can. So to do that, we're hitting all these platforms. Our internal system at Marcus is tremendous. We have over 2,000 brokers, and we have a really great internal system where as soon as something's listed, everybody can see it. We have a back-end matching system for buyer needs. So there's just a lot of collaboration within the firm, which is really, really helpful for net lease specifically. Outside the firm, our team does post deals on LinkedIn because it's great visibility for other brokers and principals. So we have a lot of people reach out to us based on LinkedIn, just closed or just listed.
Is that on the team page, or is that in your personal feeds, your personal LinkedIn accounts?
Personal page, because I find that there's less interaction with team pages than individuals. So I really put no effort at all into the team page.
And that's something I've kept saying. Unfortunately, LinkedIn, I think LinkedIn makes you, it's been a while since we ran ads and the marketing team usually handles this, but I don't think if you create a team page, I don't think LinkedIn will allow you to boost a post to get more eyeballs than just your network. It has to go to the team page, I think. But you guys are just doing organic. You guys aren't running ads against that, like trying to boost the reach. Got it.
I've done ads. The reach has been pretty successful without it, but maybe that's the next step.
Mm-hmm. And what other mediums to get maximum exposure?
Other social media platforms, Instagram. We just started using Facebook. I don't love it, but why not? We've started putting properties on Digsy, which has been fun for the last, and we have gotten some new buyers that we didn't know. So that's been really shameless plug for you, but
thanks.
And honestly, it's been good. It really has brought us people that we didn't otherwise reach or know. We kind of use CoStar and LoopNet. I think most brokers have a love-hate relationship with CoStar LoopNet, which we kind of feel the same. Crexy, we'll put properties up on Crexy. We do a lot of email marketing. We have a very substantial client database. We have principal lists and broker lists that we'll send properties out to at various stages in the marketing process. I think that covers it.
Okay, cool. You guys are doing a lot of drone videos too. It's almost like, I think you shared with me the other day when we were chatting that now if you have a listing, you almost have to do a drone video for that property. Is that correct?
100%. We don't put anything out in the market without drone photos unless it's under construction. And then we'll use rep photos and construction photos and not do the drone until it's completed.
I got a question for you because everybody always, I don't know, do you get this question all the time, Bucky? Everybody goes, what's your CRM, right? Do you use that? Right? I don't even think you use CRM, Bucky, and you got plenty of business.
I'm a bad person to ask about CRM.
Exactly. I get questions about it all the time. And, we have most people ask about the little tool. It's a side tool that we had built for outbound lead generation, Digsy AI. And I go, oh, it's a great CRM. I'm like, no. This is just for you to be able to quickly make cold calls and send personalized emails at scale and generate leads. Then you have to drop them in a CRM. And we get all kinds of questions like, what's the best? We ran a survey, Karly, this was a long time ago. It was probably 3 or 4 years ago. And it was just a series of different questions, but one of them was, what was your CRM? And the interesting thing, you want to know the number one CRM and we did several thousand of brokers and professionals. And want to know what the number one CRM that people were using was? Outlook.
Outlook, yeah, something ridiculous that they shouldn't be using. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and at the same time, it works. So I just think people overthink CRM because it tends to be a lot of work. Your tool should just be generating leads and managing deals. And even if it's a paper file or anything, just don't worry about it. Just
I totally disagree.
No. Well, I will disagree with you because you guys have that internal thing that you guys built with the buyer and listing matches. Are you using anything outside of the M&M to use?
So M&M is an intranet basically for the company. It connects all 2,000 plus brokers and is an inventory sharing system. It's really efficient. It's a great tool. Has absolutely nothing to do with our team CRM.
What do you guys use?
We use Apto, which is built on Salesforce. Mm-hmm. And honestly, you've got to have a good CRM if you're going to scale. There is no way to keep all the clients and the leads straight, even the active deals. So we put everything into Apto. I can see every email, every call we log, everything. So if I'm speaking to someone maybe I haven't talked to in a year, I've had this happen. People will call me and say, oh, it's so good to talk to you. How have you been? And I'm like, who is this person, right? And you get up and you're like, oh my gosh, blah, blah, blah. Amazing. How's this property and that and that. If I didn't have that, mm-hmm. It wouldn't be such a smooth conversation.
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. I'm talking about all the people that aren't using CRM already or have the discipline. They just don't use it. It's very rare. For every one person that I meet like you, Karly, there are about a few hundred people that are not doing that or have the discipline to do what you're doing with your system. And by the way, Tanner from Apto, the founder, him and I were just chatting over Zoom 2-3 weeks ago, maybe a month ago now. And, we were kind of, because we're both in the tech space and we were kind of just telling horror and war stories and our successes and wins. And he was telling me the same thing. Is like, hey, the power users make a lot of money, but you should see, you know, how many people they just don't use, they don't leverage it.
Too bad.
Yeah. You had a question for Bucky, if I remember, that you wanted to touch on about developments or something like that.
Yeah, so I thought it was interesting. We were connecting offline before we started. And Bucky, I think you mentioned you do all product types and you are market specific, which is completely opposite of my team's business plan, but a great business plan also. What are you seeing in your market in terms of redevelopment between property types? Are you seeing a lot of sort of reinvention of vacant retail or development that is sort of atypical in certain areas? What's happening in your market?
So right now we have a lot of hotels and apartments, which I think a lot of large metro markets had went through, especially pre-COVID. We'll see how it comes out post-COVID, where people from outside of our state, outside of our country, have invested to be a part of Destination Medical Center and what Mayo is looking to continually grow here in our market. So we're seeing a lot of ground up development. And then aside from that, we're seeing, for example, our Apache Mall, which is the large retail center here that has a sporting goods store and J.C. Penney's and other stores. As tenants have left, different uses going into there. I just saw, I think it's today, the Children's Museum is opening up in our Apache Mall, where it's a interactive experience for children to go into, and it's like a park, if you will, but it involves education. And so we're seeing those type of changes occur on the retail side of things. And then going even further, we're seeing ground up development from large developers based out of Minneapolis, mainly coming in with the relationships that they have and bringing new brands to our market that we haven't seen, such as Ulta Beauty, Marshalls, more Starbucks, things of that nature. So things are happening across the board. And I feel like it's this little look into what a major market is doing at a smaller scale. So I can only imagine what places like New York and New Jersey are going through, but we do see different uses in a small market such as ours, because we have a large employer base and good wages and just a good place to live. So it's a good economy locally. And
the best broker locally, the guy who started 24 months after he came out of the womb, Bucky BEEMAN. Wear the hamburger shirt. I have to mention the hamburger shirt.
Yes, next time I'll wear it.
Every episode we talk about the hamburger shirt. So
what are you seeing? I know you're not doing a lot of triple net sales, investment sales specific in your market, but where you're liking to shop and where you go with your children, what are you seeing in your market as far as changes?
We're seeing a lot of discussion about repurposing of big box retail into industrial, because we have extremely limited supply of industrial inventory in the Northeast and huge demand. So there's talk about some vacant J.C. Penney's and Sears, Toys R Us being repurposed to potentially industrial. There's a lot of zoning issues, traffic patterns are a concern, but everyone's trying to figure that out. Also, there's a big demand still for apartments. So changing use or adding use has been a big topic of conversation. Garden State Plaza is one of our very profitable main malls up here, and they're building apartments in part of their parking lot. So that's been an interesting product to watch. It's just what's next. I think, as a country, we have too much retail. So without question, some of it's going to be reimagined as these other asset classes expand. Some of it will be repurposed as different retail, but stay kind of in the same vein. So
Karly,
figuring out what's next.
So one of my questions that I wrote down was around these retail to industrial conversions. I was talking to one of the guys. Remember when we were having that call offline, I told you the guy at Lean Associates that was really creative, and he had shown me, like, we went to lunch. We didn't even grab lunch. He drove by a building just to make sure they were cutting out the windows. They had converted it to an industrial building to an office building, and he'd save his client like $120 a foot. So retail to industrial conversions, I'm shocked at how many people, well, it's still early, but it's kind of like our LinkedIn social media tribe, like we're all talking about this, but I'm surprised how many local brokers don't know that this is happening. So what does that look like? Like, you take retail, which is usually dense, right? But it does have some characteristics. Some of them have, a lot of them have dock high doors at the back, et cetera, especially like grocery stores and things like that. But what does a retail to industrial conversion look like? Can you educate us a little bit? Because I think, and look at it from the lens of somebody who's can't picture retail being converted to industrial. Can you sort of shed some light on that?
I think it's very project specific. So if it's going to be a last mile distribution center, that's different than just a warehouse, which is different than light manufacturing. So what industrial use you're trying for, and what type of retail you're repurposing, it all matters. But the key things we're seeing is access is a really big deal. Zoning, and then traffic patterns have gotten a lot of pushback because industrial trucks come at weird hours, it's loud, so there's some pushback in the community for that. Just the general access for the distribution trucks has been a concern. You know, how do the traffic patterns change? But if all that can be overcome, it's a great way for these companies to get their last mile distribution in a really, really convenient, favorable place. Mm-hmm. Rents have been another interesting thing because industrial rents are typically a lot lower than retail rents. So
but less parking though too. You can probably add on, if you get it approved, you can probably add a lot of more square feet. In fact, almost double the square footage in a property if you're able to expand the footprint of it, like the rentable square footage of it.
Maybe, but you need truck parking.
Yeah.
And you need access, and you need more loading docks, which take up a lot of space. You need turning radius. You know, it just kind of works differently. We're seeing some medical uses backfill retail too when industrial doesn't work. And actually, Bucky, I wanted to ask you that. Has Mayo Clinic been expanding into smaller footprint clinics in the community? Are they doing any sort of, you know, outpatient or doctor's hubs kind of model that is away from the main hospital? Because that's something we've been talking about, is medical becoming the retailization, if you will, of medical, where it becomes more in front of the community.
I would say in our community specifically, not as much because they have the main hospital here. I have seen them go into some grocery stores with fast clinics where you can go and get a quick checkup. The majority of their investment, from my perspective, has been in bioscience. So partnering with developers, one of the largest developers in the country, Mortensen, to build a bioscience building, multi-tenant, and then using their brand and their connection to just a great institution as a way to incentivize tenants to sign leases in this building. It's 100% full, and they have lots of companies that have come to this building. So that's where I've seen their investment. Not to say it won't change in the future, but because it's the main hospital, it's focused in a very defined area for the most part in our community.
That's interesting. Let's go back to retail to industrial conversions, shall we?
So we are in Rochester seeing the Shopcos, of course, closing down, and large investment companies buying several Shopcos and then having to sell them off. So we had 2 Shopcos in our community. One's still listed. One is already sold. That Shopco, they're both about 90,000 square feet, is getting converted to, majority of it's an HVAC and lighting company that does work in the residential and commercial area. They'll have an additional 30,000 square feet for lease, and then they rented out 10,000 square feet to a local restaurant chain, restaurant operator. And that's what we're seeing happen with our Shopcos. I've seen in other markets, Shopcos turn into car dealerships, and it's a car dealership that offers so much, right? Body repair, and they may have a car wash on an outlot, and they just try to make it the one-stop shop. So that's some of the changeover I've seen in that realm of things.
That's interesting.
It's really market and project specific. I sold a shopping center, I guess it's been about 1.5 years now, in South Dakota. And it had a Sears that was soon to be vacant. It had a few years left on the lease. It was a fairly challenging assignment. And when it was a repeat client, when the client called, he said, you know, we have this shopping center in the middle of nowhere in South Dakota. What do you think? Do you want to list it? And I said, great. Yeah, with a vacant Sears, amazing. But we did get it done. And it ended up being a local developer that we sold it to, who made it into, and it's still underway, a mixed use. And by mixed use, I mean medical. He had a sort of out parcel of the hospital, or a hub of the hospital that came in and did emergency services. He added some low-income housing. And this was 100% retail. It's a pretty big shopping center, but it was all retail. So he was able to get some low-income housing approved, and then he moved back in the tenants that were successful, that wanted to stay, and just reconfigure the retail component. So he really kind of matched what the community needed and did a lot of work from a zoning and approval perspective to make the project fit, his needs as a developer from a profit standpoint, but also make it work for the community. So I think it depends, right? Maybe in Bucky's market, if Mayo doesn't need these other smaller spaces, that's not a fit, and the car dealers need to expand it. I don't think there's an easy answer for what's going to happen to retail across the board. I think it's extremely market specific.
The conversions that we are seeing, what are they? Mainly last mile conversions that we're seeing?
I think that's the biggest need right now.
Makes sense, because I mean, there's very little space, and e-commerce is what's really driving this stuff.
And the demand for fast shipping is increasing. So nobody likes to wait 5 days anymore. I can tell you, I ordered clothes for my kids from Gap and Children's Place, and it took almost 2 weeks. And the day after we ordered it, they were going, "Can you check the tracking again? It hasn't arrived." I'm like, "Well, it's been 12 hours. And they said, "Well, you get all your Amazon stuff next. Why haven't I gotten my new, sparkly pineapple shirt? I really want it now. We ordered it yesterday." And I think that mentality is not just kids, it's grown-ups too. Like, if you order something and you have to wait a week and a half, are you going to order from that retailer again? No, it's irritating. So they have to change their distribution model to accommodate basically 2 days the max now. 2-day shipping, no matter what it is, we want it in 2 days. And that's hard.
Crazy. Yeah, it's the logistics business is so hard. I mean, look at Amazon. They don't even make their money on this stuff. They make their money on hosting websites and technology companies. I mean, we use Amazon Web Services. That's where all the profit is, really. All right, guys. So this is, I didn't hear you.
Saying from Amazon, it's a market share grab.
Yep. Oh, have you heard, are they still buying JCPenney?
I don't know that it's been finalized. I think there's a few people bidding on JCPenney's right now.
Bucky, you were going to say something.
I was just curious a little bit about, I was looking at LinkedIn, and that's where I first got introduced to you. It looks like in the real estate career path that you had, did you start in residential over at another?
I did a lifetime ago. I'm not even going to tell you how long. A really long time ago. I started in residential and sold condos in Hoboken, which is this great, fun town right outside New York City, right across the Hudson River. And then my family's in development, so I did a year with condo development along the Gulf Coast with my dad as well.
So what was the path to commercial from there? Like, was it just something that you were drew to, or someone ended up bringing you underneath their wing, or, how did that path work? Because I feel so often, like in a market such as ours, there's a lot of residential agents that are interested in commercial, but they have no idea how to break in, and they're kind of curious, but it's difficult for them to make that jump in an area they're not familiar with.
I think you have to be, if you're a broker looking to transition, I think you have to be realistic about what you like to do, what your skill set is, and how you want to spend your time. I don't like emotional selling. I like facts. I'm incredibly detail oriented. I like having a process, and I like working with a variety of high net worth individuals, REITs, and sort of that level of clientele. So for me, residential, and I was very young. It was, a year after leaving my first job, which was in litigation consulting, which I knew I didn't want to do. So I was very young, and it was just a matter of learning the sales process. But I quickly knew that I needed something that was more challenging and more on the professional side, just to fit what my career goals were. So personally, I knew it was a better direction for me. But I would say, there are a lot of residential brokers who could transition. It's a matter of finding a company with a good training program and a great mentor. Because if you just kind of start no offense to the mixed resi commercial firms out there, but it's hard to really get traction if you're not all in on commercial. It's hard to kind of do both, unless maybe you're in a smaller market, but it's very, very competitive. So you really have to be at the right place.
Cool.
Awesome. All right, guys, that's a wrap. Thank you all for coming on board. Karly, looking forward to joining us and co-hosting a little more often with us. And with that being said, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell icon, so that way you get alerted when me, Bucky, Karly, Natalie, et al. Release new videos every week. And leave us a comment. Yeah, whatever platform you're on. If you're on LinkedIn or YouTube, etc., do that. And if you're listening to this in the podcast, make sure to subscribe and share it with people so that they get exposed to this. And with that being said, Karly, Bucky, crush it. Happy birthday, Bucky. Just kidding. It's not your birthday. But we'll see you guys next week.
See you next week. Thanks, Andrew.
See you guys.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, Karly. Bye.